Hello everyone, it is a privilege to welcome Dr. Sergio Chávez-Pérez, a research geophysicist at the Mexican Petroleum Institute, IMP, in Mexico City, and a vital bridge between the academic and industrial worlds. A legendary volunteer for both the SEG and AGU, Sergio has spent decades fostering international collaboration and mentorship across North and Latin America. Today, we trace his path from his earliest spark in geosciences to his vision for the future of our field. Thank you for joining us, Sergio.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for all of your efforts concerning these communications.
The honor is all mine, and thank you for these kind words. So, first of all, congratulations are in order because you recently became a mentor in the SEG Mentorship Program 2026 within the SEG Latin America Advisory Committee. Given your long history of informal mentorship, what motivated you to join this formal initiative, and what do you hope to learn from your mentees?
I think the main motivation is service. This effort actually began 2 years ago, but this is the time when SEG is pushing more for Latin America communication. And I like to be helpful to people willing to become better students, professionals, and even human beings. I don't mean about my values, but about their values and personalities. And what one expects is to learn from the human side and willingness of the students. It's as simple as that. We learn from each other.
As we talk about mentees and mentoring younger generation, let's go back to the very beginnings of your career and your passion in geosciences. What was the specific spark or moment in your youth that first drew you to geosciences, and at what age did it happen?
I was in high school, and everything began with a physical geology book used by my sister during her early biology studies. I think I was about 14 or 15. The hardest part when I tried to be serious about this was to decide between geology and geophysics. I couldn't tell the difference that easily. Sometimes, even these days, you cannot tell the difference, but we like to fight with each other. We like to fight with geologists, and they like to fight with us, and so on, being so complementary. And when I was a kid, I used to say that I wanted to be a zoologist. So from then on, curiosity has driven my interests. And the best way for me to relax is to watch any TV program on animal behavior. That's my recipe for relaxation. Or go out and take a look at any animal behavior. That's fun for me. I guess that's the zoologist that never became one.
The first formal education that you received in geosciences basically was when you completed your undergraduate studies in Mexico, but then these studies were followed by a master's and PhD in the United States. So you moved significant distance, and probably you changed the educational academic culture as well. So how did navigating different academic cultures shape your approach to geophysics and to international collaboration in general?
I talk about this question a lot because of the exercise we're just doing. I think I had to modify and improve my communication and interaction skills. So I used to be shy, believe it or not. That's one example. And I think I learned a lot about intellectual honesty and technical competence and credibility. In a nutshell, undergraduate education in Mexico built my personality and values and beliefs. Graduate education in the USA changed my life. it improved my personality and polished my values and beliefs. So in a nutshell, that's how I can describe what happened to me.
If, for example, a student asks you whether he or she have to travel out of their native country for continuing their education, would you advise it to them, and but also would you warn them of some difficulties that might come their way in case uh, they change their country, and in what cases they better should stay in their native land and continue there?
Yeah, you're a good example of what I'm going to say. You don't need to get out of your country to be the person you want to be. Some of us claim that we needed it because we needed to improve our communication skills, for instance, English. And as lots of people say, you have to expect the unexpected. You have to be ready for whatever comes out because well, sometimes you don't feel happy or belonging to the place where you are, and you have to overcome that. And the first recipe that I would use is get out and talk to people. You have to modify the way you behave socially.
Uh, so we talked about hurdles now, and looking back at your journey so far, what has been the single greatest hurdle, whether academic, technical, or personal, that you had to overcome to establish yourself as a leader in the field?
By far, the most difficult part has been to go back to your home country because, and I've done it twice. So after I finished my master's, I came back to Mexico. Then I didn't feel happy enough. I wanted to pursue a PhD, and I kept trying and trying until I was able to do that. So the lack of resources and the lack of tradition in my field in Mexico has always been complicated to me. So you have to swim against the current, and that can be very difficult sometimes. That's the main hurdle. And that's why you have to keep improving yourself, to swimming. You have to keep swimming better and better.
You became an SEG member in 1981 during your undergraduate years still in Mexico. So, what was the atmosphere like for a young geophysical engineer in Mexico City at that time, and how did SEG help you find your professional identity?
As you can imagine, and I'm going to refer to my age at the time, I was 20 years old and I had no clue about what geophysics was all about. But I became very interested in exploration geophysics. And we all have this kind of feeling of being explorers in our environment. And at the time, and it's always been my view, the education it used to be a social mobility factor. You would improve your life if you were educated, and still does. I think that's still part of the best decisions that one can do to improve you, our own education. Now, SEG has always helped me define my activities and professional roadmap. When I began trying to read a paper like geophysics in the journal Geophysics, I could hardly read the abstract, but I kept trying and trying. And some of the papers, you're unable to read them when you're an undergraduate. Later on, you are able to grasp some of the contents. And since that time, that's when I finally decided that I wanted to become some sort of exploration seismologist. Again, I had no clue how to achieve that. And I come from a family that was kind of like uneducated. So my father and mother were not educated. So you have to have your own way of doing things. You don't necessarily get too much help from your family, sometimes not even from your friends, because we were also in the process that we didn't know what geophysics was. We were discovering what was that. And we used to say, well, we didn't make a mistake. We probably just took the decision in the wrong country. So we all wanted to get out and pursue graduate education. And that was the spark at the undergraduate level. We wanted to find out what exploration was about. And we're still doing it to a large extent.
Why you set for yourself this goal? Why exploration? Because it seems that now we have all the internet, all the resources. We can look for it, like ask what exploration is. But at that time, it seems to me like you just chased your dream based on your feelings, and you really had passion for this exploration. Maybe not fully like realizing what it was, but how did you come to understand that that's something you want to do, and in fact you ended up doing it for decades, so it was right feeling. So how did you get this right feeling without actually chat gpt and what exploration geophysics is, and without like reading all these pros and cons of it?
It was a lot easier for us because we didn't have as much information as you guys do. We didn't get as biased as some of you may get because of this abundance of information, which you don't know what to choose. You want to be everything. And I think I got infected. And I thought about this question in the past, and I think the main infection came from the journal Geophysics, because I used to browse, to skim the papers, and I wanted to know what those seismic images were. Again, I had no clue. I had no idea. I didn't know how they were collected, processed, much less interpreted. So I tried to follow that path, and it took me decades. It doesn't take years. It takes you decades to get to some level of understanding.
In February 2025, you stood in solidarity with the AGU statement regarding the dismantling of the scientific enterprise following executive orders that impacted federal scientific agencies in the United States, and basically hence in the entire world, with the United States being so important in science and in geosciences as well. So as an international scientist, how do you see the practical responsibility of global societies like SEG and AGU in protecting the scientific enterprise when national policy shifts threaten global collaboration? And maybe I would extend this question: what should every member of these societies who care about data integrity do, regardless of whether they are American or international scientists?
I think we all provide our beliefs, values, suggestions, and so on. And let me just to let me provide a bit of context. So I became an SEG member back in 1981 when I had no idea what geophysics was about. And I became an AGU member, I think it was 1984 or 1985, when I was a master's student in the US. And I presented my master's thesis at an AGU meeting. And that's how you feel you become a professional. That's how you feel you are starting to build your technical competence and credibility. That's how everything begins, from my humble viewpoint. So SEG and AGU and any other professional societies like, say, AAPG, EAGE, you name it, they guide our professions. They even guide our ethical values. Most of them, or all of them, have an ethical rule or an ethical document about how to behave, how to become a good professional. So when it comes to these problems with funding that we all have, that we all face, when we are young, we face problems with the scholarships or fellowships. When we become professionals, we sometimes we don't get enough money to buy what you want to get, or you just don't get it. So I think we have to show our generosity by supporting other people in other countries. In this case, it is easier because it is the USA. We are next to it. We got educated in their environment. So all we have to do without falling into cheap politics is to say, hey guys, I think you're making a mistake. And I think that's what AGU essentially stated. They said, hey, we don't like what is going on, guys. Let's modify that. And I think it's our duty as a member to stick to that or to stay away from that. And it was, to me, it was natural to say, yes, I feel I have to be solidarious with this. As simple as that.
Yes.
Because that's why you're a member of these professional societies. And let me add quickly, a problem we see with the younger generations, that they don't see the need to be part of these professional societies. In my generation, in older generations, it was like a rule for us to be part of these technical armies, if I may call them that way, where you learn the rules, you learn the behavior, you learn all your tools to become a professional. And that's why it's natural to stick to their statements. In general, it is very natural. They still guide me. I mean, the little things that I know about AGU come from the general publications they have. And that makes you feel part of these societies. This feeling of belonging to a group, I think it is essential.
To my point of view, and I am not that close to the USA, so I don't know the culture, but I think that it might be pretty risky rather for younger generation and the younger students to express their position, especially if they want to move to the USA either as a young researcher or a student, and they might fear complications which might arise from expressing their public position basically against the USA government. So what advice would you give to them, whether they should just from the start their career express it and roll with it, and it's nothing bad with that, or maybe they should like put their position mild and do it not through public channels as more established professionals do, and communicate it rather through maybe being on the committees and doing some like mild outreach work and not just straight away telling their abrupt position, which might be correct but might be also risky for them.
Well, complaining and whining become international sports. We all complain about something. We all whine about why this happened to me. How come this is blah, blah, blah. You name it. I think we just have to be prudent. We have to be careful. And above all, and that's something I learned in the US to some extent, we have to be very respectful. Because not because there is something I don't like, I have an opinion. Mostly because sometimes I know nothing about the topic. So how can you give me an opinion if you are not informed? How can you whine about something how can I whine about your home country if I've never even been there? If I have never even read about it. So I think we just have to be careful. And I think you learn that also being part of these committees. You learn also from the behavior of these professionals.
You have been called an all-star volunteer for the SEG, and from the research committee to the board of directors, what is the most rewarding or hidden benefit of this service that early career geoscientists might not realize until they get involved?
Again, this is a personal anecdote. And I guess it is interesting to share it with you and people who watch this video. Sometimes we are underestimated. Sometimes it's like, how come you want to be in the research committee if you are from Mexico? You don't live in Houston. How the hell do you know something about research? All the fancy level research is done abroad. So what's the point? And it took me three attempts to become the chair. And then go figure. We can say even some funny things about the process. But we usually underestimate the value of education. We usually underestimate what intellectual honesty is, and even generosity. And that's something that you provide to the committees. You have to be humble enough to accept the criticism you get from your colleagues. And the main idea is to improve yourself. And in the process, you help improve others who may be older than you. Some of them may be famous. Some of them are big names, but you are younger. You are more ambitious sometimes. Bottom line is that we all end up learning from our colleagues, and then things will get better for the committee or for the society as a whole. That would be the best part. Just as a quick example, how can you help contribute something to SEG? Doing your best effort in the place where you live and in the place where you work. Spread the word, and hopefully one of these days things will start changing. And they do. Believe it or not, they do. Perhaps you won't see it all, but you were part of the process who fostered the change. And I think that's the hidden benefit. If we can, following your term, that's the hidden benefit. You learn from each other. We learn from each other. And we're not always willing to translate that into our own activities, because it's a lot easier to be arrogant or demean someone. Or, hey, Alexei, how come you know that if you live in Israel? Give me a break. You have no idea about this, right? And you learn a lot from that demeaning process until you kind of like feel, okay, fine, now I'm one of you. I don't mean to be better than you. I just want to be one of you, period. Why? Because I want to get better. I think that's the hidden benefit, that you feel you belong to a community that lets you grow, and you help them in the process, even if they don't realize it or even if they don't recognize it. These efforts that you are doing are helping the community. As simple as that. How? This communication process.
You worked and you are working extensively on bridging the gap between AGU and SEG, basically between the geoscientists of two different yet parallel direction. So why the collaboration between earthquake seismologist and exploration seismologist, if I can call this group so without insulting any of this group's members? So why this collaboration is more critical today than ever before?
when I was trying to follow my professional roadmap and become an exploration seismologist, whatever that means, I have to train myself as an earthquake seismologist to some extent, because I pursued my PhD in a seismolab, in a seismological lab. And the only guys doing exploration were my advisor and his students. The other guys were doing earthquake seismology, again, whatever that means. But there are lots of similarities. Again, we learn from each other. And because of the amount of information that they both handle, we need to be communicated. Let me quickly give an example based on what I know from you. You're working with DAS, and DAS is working for everyone, either an earthquake seismologist or an exploration seismologist. And this sharing of data analysis, processing, modeling, imaging, and interpretation techniques, I mean, we just need to learn from each other, and that's it. I think it's a natural process because at the end, we all do exploration. Even if the other guys don't like the term, we all are exploring in our own scale, in our own field of action. We want to know the shallow, the intermediate, or the deeper part, or the ultra deep, as you call it. And I think it is necessary. I think it is unavoidable. It is unavoidable. And it's not a matter of teaching the other guy how to do things. No, it is being humble and listening to the other guy. And perhaps I will learn from him instead of assuming that you are the reference, right? You are the guy who knows about that. Well, no, listen to the guys who you believe truly know more than you do, and then apply that to your own activity. I think it is a natural process. And again, some people going into exploration came from different fields, like earthquake seismology or physics or electrical engineering or you name it. So you don't need to be labeled as something you will end up doing from the beginning. You will discover it in the professional roadmap.
You have been an adjunct professor at National Autonomous University of Mexico, UNAM, for many years, and you were an adjunct professor at the University of Utah from 2004 to 2014. So, what is the most significant change you observed in how students approach geophysics today compared to when you started?
Of course, this is a personal view, but I share this with lots of friends and colleagues and even mentors. And as I said, whining and complaining is an international sport, right? So we complain that there is this lack of networking, like the one we usually discover in these professional societies. It is one example. So because of that, sometimes we feel some of the younger generations have this sort of lack of social abilities, less curiosity, and less willingness to interact with each other and invest in themselves. They don't want to invest in themselves that much unless it is related to the computing environment or the communities you belong to or the personal energy you want to invest in. I think that's the main complaint or whine that I have about the younger students. One of my former students who got his bachelor's degree in another university in Mexico City, he asked me, hey, what do you think it is something we need? And I said, well, that's an open question. But I essentially said, I think you just need to be more curious. That's it. And we feel that the abundance of information, the abundance of social engagements in the computing environment take you away from, perhaps it's a speculation, perhaps that takes you away from being more curious, because it's a lot easier to have this information. In our old days, when there was no, I mean, when we began, there was not even email, there was not even World Wide Web, you name it. So that's why I said it was relatively easier to be more focused. Now the main problem is, how do you remain focused if you have so many things available to you? In a nutshell, I think it is a lack of curiosity. And in previous communications between you and me, we have shared the opinion that curiosity is what drives pretty much everything in your own activities. And let me take advantage of this. I wrote this part just to remember myself that I recently read something. I like to read a lot about leadership and so on. And there's this guy named Scott Evelyn, or Evelyn, from the Evelyn Group, one of those people who write a lot about leadership. And he was stuck with something he read, something that was expressed and broadcasted in his best ever podcast. And it was mentioned by a U.S. Olympic gold medalist and championship coach, Dane Blanton. I knew nothing about him. He shared something about energy management. And he said, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your training. So when you're young, you're hoping to fulfill the expectations that people may have about you, but you don't really fulfill them just by behaving in a different way, or by assuming that you know, or by pretending that you know. You rise to the occasion based on the level of your education, the level of your ambitions, the level of your expectations about others. And if I was able to explain myself, I think this quote gives an interesting view about how we have to be relating to other people. It's not a matter of, oh, did I mean, did I rise to the occasion of the interview that Alexei is making to me? Well, I don't think I have to worry about that. I just have to worry about being myself, and that's it. Perhaps I won't satisfy Alexei's expectations, or the public, whoever watches the video. But all I did was show the level of education, experience, knowledge, you name it, that I do have. And I think that's one of the most important lessons I learned from graduate school in the US. Be yourself.
So, from your perspective as a mentor and an editor who has seen hundreds of papers, what is that golden ticket, skill, or trait that not only gets a student noticed on the CV today, but will be their greatest asset as the industry evolves toward 2030 and general the future?
My answer will be very brief, because I tell this to lots of people. You have to build your own technical competence and credibility. And you also have to build your human side as much as possible. I think we all notice and value intellectual honesty, generosity, and above all, congruency. Let me add this. And I also learned this in the US, in the graduate education process. You can tell me a lot about you in a 15 minutes interview. That's it. I don't need to, and it sounds arrogant, but we don't need to know too much about each other if we if we ask the right questions, and based on your answers, you tell me who you are in 15 minutes. And that's where we can realize if you are intellectually honest, if you are generous, and to some extent, if you are congruent.
I want to go back in time a bit because your 2021 paper discussed the challenges of teaching during COVID 19. What lessons learned from that period should we keep to ensure geophysics remains accessible to students in remote or underserved regions?
I think you referred to a paper we wrote in Spanish. We wrote about the topic, some colleagues and I. The senior author was one of my professors during my undergraduate years. I guess bottom line was that virtual classes to undergraduate and graduate students was truly awful. And I'm pretty sure we're still dealing with the consequences of that. But we learned something that I keep telling people almost every day. Everything boils down to education and communication. And one of the positive outcomes was that we're able to do this. We're able to communicate from such a distant place, our uneven culture, different culture.
Sergio, you've written citations for giants in our field like Manika Prasad and Kurt Marford. What common trait do you see in these high achieving geophysicists that goes beyond just technical brilliance?
Now they invite you to join this citation group. It's not because you are a big famous guy. It's just because they know you, they like you, and they say, hey, why don't you help us with this? And there's no way you can say no, right? It would be dumb to say no. I think the main learning that comes from these technically brilliant people is that you see their human side and their intellectual honesty. You learn a lot from them, how productive they can be, and their passion for the science they do. And that's it. It is brief, but that means a lot to you.
You balance research at the Mexican Petroleum Institute with teaching and international leadership. So, what does a typical Tuesday actually look like for you? Are you still immersing yourself in the seismic code and data, or is your day mostly consumed by strategic coordination and collaboration, etc.?
A typical Monday or Wednesday can look like a typical Sunday. I think I personally like to improvise a lot. And sometimes you're efficient in odd hours. But what I do the most is strategic coordination. I would love to get more hands dirty with data and so on. But the more you move on, the more you feel focused on strategy. So what are we going to do next? What am I going to do next? And I have come to define myself as a technology follower or gatekeeper. Lots of people undermine that activity, but it is enough to keep you busy, just to follow what technology, just to know what the hell technology is and how the hell it is developed. That keeps you busy. And I do everything I can to stay healthy. And as you notice, be as humble as possible, work hard, and try to be as kind as possible. That's in a nutshell. That's how I do it.
How do you stay curious? After decades in the field, what still manages to surprise you when you look at a new dataset or a research problem?
This is something that I wrote even in my PhD thesis, and I'm going to read it. My mentors have instilled in me the spirit of sacrifice, adventure, and effort required for research. And I keep relaying that to whoever I hold conversations or interactions with. So we have to invest in ourselves, and I mostly mean it intellectually. Some people don't like that. Sometimes you even have to sponsor your work. And as any curious person, I think understanding more and more about the world keeps you going. And by that I mean understanding about life, work, social interaction, etc. And finally, I think what keeps you curious and motivated is reading as much as possible. I don't want to say what I read, just read whatever you like. And you'll know, once you know what you want, you will know what you read, what you should read. So I think reading is the main food for me.
And finally, Sergio, looking at the next generation of researchers worldwide, in just one single word, how do you describe the future of geosciences?
I talk about this question a lot. I think the one word is essential. I mean, perhaps we don't always realize it, but we all need each other, and we all need geosciences. As far as we live, we will need geosciences. It doesn't matter what kind of energy or knowledge you pursue, you will need to talk to a geoscientist. So I think I mean, again, trying to be humble, I think we are essential.
Sergio, thank you so much for your time. Your journey is a masterclass in balancing technical rigor with the heart of a mentor. And by uniting the worlds of exploration and earthquake seismology, you've provided a clear roadmap for the next generation. And thank you for your tireless service and for showing us that curiosity makes us better human beings.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for being who you are. And thank you for doing what you do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And to our viewers, stay curious, be kind, and don't forget to subscribe to Geoscientists Voices YouTube channel for more expert interviews like this. And see you in the next episode.